Hello and welcome. And so it's a time to perhaps be a bit quiet internally, to sit and meditate, and to bring mindfulness to our experience, to bring awareness, attention. And it seems that in the teachings of the Buddha, water is used as a simile metaphor for awareness. And when we begin practice, maybe our capacity to be mindful, to be consciously aware, are brief. And maybe it's more like moments that we sprinkle into the situation. So sprinkling awareness into our life, and maybe that's also kind of a nice image that is kind of. I've been in places where Buddhist monastics have sprinkled water on people's heads and as a blessing, kind of sprinkling awareness on our experience. As the moments of awareness become more continuous, awareness becomes more like flowing water. And it flows over and through and around our experience. Or our experience, it's kind of being washed by awareness or floating in awareness. And the idea of flowing water, it doesn't stop for anything. If it's a dam, it builds up to the top of the dam and spills over. But eventually it finds its way downhill. And it can be soft, but over time it's very powerful, wearing away the hardest granite, wearing away the hardest attachments we have, as we let the water flow through and with. And water doesn't complain about things, it just flows. Water doesn't attach to anything, it just flows. And then at times, water enters into a large, large lake where the water becomes really still and quiet. And peaceful, quiet, transparent water is how mindfulness awareness can become when it becomes well developed, when all those moments of continuity really come together and there's no more reinforcing or bringing more attention and energy to it. The awareness is just there. And to abide, to dwell in this kind of lake-like, oceanic-like awareness is also possible. And so in other ways as well, the Buddha uses water as a simile and metaphor. And so as we sit today, perhaps you can keep close by the simile, the metaphor of water for the awareness that you are evoking, bringing forth for this present moment experience. Water flowing along with the breathing, water sprinkled in, water as the vast spaciousness, vast stillness in which everything floats. Everything floats in its own way. And when everything individually floats in the vast space of awareness, for the Buddha, there's a lot of equanimity that comes along. So being equanimous about all things. So with that, that's kind of the idea for today. Mostly we'll sit quietly. And So you might, if you haven't already, gently close your eyes. And if your mind, awareness, heart is like agitated water, taking a long, deep breath, and on the exhale, let it all settle. Let it all settle. Letting breathing return to normal. Bringing awareness to your body, breathing. If sometimes intermittently, like water sprinkled in blessings on yourself. Other times more continuous and flowing, moving. And other times everything floats, allowing to be as it is in a vast body of water, vast body of awareness. If you find yourself agitated or caught up in thoughts or feelings or body sensations, imagine that it's floating in an ocean, a wide lake of water. It's allowed to be there. But it's allowed to float all by itself. It doesn't have to influence you or affect you. It doesn't have to go away. But it's held in a wide, vast field, lake of awareness. As we come to the end of the sitting, to again give some thought or image to water. Maybe in how if you put your hand, touch your hand into water, the water doesn't resist the hand, but it does surround it. In a sense, the water touches the hand completely, thoroughly, but offers no resistance. So when sounds come, sensations come, feelings, thoughts come, it's possible to have no resistance. Allow them to come, and the water changes its shape to receive whatever comes into it. At the same time, so your water, your awareness receives, doesn't resist, but it also can be intimate with everything, non-resisting, and in contact, touching. And to go into the world without resistance, but with a heart that can shift and change and adapt and move with whatever comes. Doesn't resist, but doesn't lose itself, and remains in a certain way connected at the heart. And may it be that this practice that we do teaches us how to care for ourselves and others by not resisting while staying connected. Teaches us how to be safe by not resisting, but staying warm and kind and friendly. Teaches us to be peaceful by not contending and complaining and grasping. And may it be that what we learn about being present can be a benefit for this world. May it be that our ability to attend, to be mindful, is for the welfare and happiness of all. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be free. So good morning and good day. So here we come to the third talk about the Buddha's use of similes to augment his instructions or to provide instructions in meditation. And some of the instructions have to do with also describing what can happen as we meditate. And so we can recognize it, and somehow in recognizing it, Buddha talks a lot about abiding in experience, entering and abiding. And this idea of abiding, resting in or dwelling in or living within, I believe it's supposed to have connotations of being at ease, being somewhat still, kind of just content and happy to be present for what's here, as a place of abiding, a place of resting, standing, being. And so to recognize the states that are useful to abide in, and this abiding quality, it's a metaphor to abide or to dwell, but I think it has a connotations of being at home in the experience, being where one's supposed to be and being at ease there. And so by recognizing these experiences, one knows where to abide. And to convey those experiences of meditation, the Buddha, and to provide instructions, the Buddha uses similes. And as I said in the meditation, there's a lot of similes that where the Buddha uses water, and in different similes, water represents different things. But often in the context of meditation, it seems like water represents awareness and mindfulness. And so depending on how strong the meditation is, how centered we are, the mindfulness feels differently. When we begin practice, mindfulness is awareness that we bring to our experience might be intermittent. And we might have a moment of being mindful, and then we wander off, and a moment again. And so the Buddha talks about sprinkling water into, from the simile from Monday, into the powder. But it's a day of sprinkling. And as I said earlier, I love the idea of sprinkling because it's kind of, on a hot day, it's kind of refreshing to be sprinkled with water, to have a water sprinkler kind of touch you and cool you down. And or standing in a shower, it's kind of lots of sprinkles pouring down. It can be very nice to stand there in the shower sometimes. Or the way that the Buddhist monastics will sprinkle water that's been blessed. So they're doing blessings and sprinkling it on people's heads. It's kind of a really fun ritual ceremony that they do. And so they're sprinkling. And so, it's not just simply bringing attention back, wonder way, bringing it back. But it's bringing it back in this nice way. We're kind of like sprinkling, our blessing, refreshing our experience with awareness the best we can. As these drops become more continuous and come together, then the metaphor is that of a lake that has a current flowing through it, delightful current flowing through it from the underwater spring. And here there's still activity and movement in the awareness. We're maybe still applying ourselves. There's kind of an active way in which awareness is functioning within us. And we kind of feel the dynamism of it, maybe, the dynamic quality of it. And then, but then as we get more concentrated, more settled, resting, abiding more deeply in the experience, then the metaphor, the simile the Buddha uses, is that now still of a lake, but this time the lake has no current, no movement in it. So there's the lake now is completely still, and I think of this lake as very clear, and very still, very peaceful. I've been mountain lakes early in the morning, before the birds are up, but the light is up, and at dawn, and being on the edge of these lakes and before the wind begins, and seeing the top of the water so still and quiet, maybe reflecting the mountains in the distance. And there's something so peace-generating by watching that. I just love sitting there, just looking at this peaceful, quiet, morning setting, scenery where the day hasn't begun and everything is so quiet and still. So the Buddha uses this idea of a still, quiet pond, lake, for how sometimes meditation can be experienced. And so the mind has no sense of movement in it anymore. And awareness has no sense of movement, and it's not being applied or brought to anything or flowing through us. It just is, and things occur within it. And the metaphor that Buddha uses for this, he talks about this still, very still, quiet lake. And he says that within it, lotus flowers of different colors, and he specifies, I forget, white and red and blue and black, and I don't know what the colors are that lotuses can have, but these lotus flowers are floating not just on top of the water, but in his metaphor, they're floating underneath the water. So I don't know if lotuses flowers can float underneath the water. Maybe it's the buds before they've opened. But because the water is clear, these lotus flowers are just floating there, each one separate from the other, kind of just floating by itself in this beautiful body of water. And this represents, the different colors represents all the different experiences we can have as we're sitting in meditation, that each experience, each individual detail kind of, is allowed to exist there by itself. Each thing is allowed to be just itself, without any reference or tied to or caught up in the past, the future, about comparisons to other things that are not it. And it's just allowed to float. And so agitation can just float there and be a lotus flower. Sensations of the body, kind of feeling just floating there. And everything just seems to float, just each thing by itself. And we're not doing anything with it or tying it, connecting it to anything else. It's just allowed to be itself. And this kind of idea of allowing each thing to be itself, the pristine self as it actually is, I think for me it gets conveyed in this simile of the lotus flowers floating in this very still lake. The water here is not just awareness, but it's also awareness saturated or filled with a kind of joy and delight. And so if you have joy and delight, joy and happiness, there's strong awareness that comes along with it. And the distinction between this joy and delight and awareness maybe is not so obvious, or maybe it is. Maybe joy and delight is some of the lotus flowers. And but the idea is that the water touches everything, and the lotus flower, no part of the lotus flower is not touched by the water. And in this metaphor, the Buddha says no part of the lotus flower is not touched by the peace, the tranquility, the contentment, the joy, the happiness of that's present in this state. It's not easy to just suddenly feel and experience the mind, the awareness, our being as a still, quiet lake. But when it does happen, then the instructions are twofold, is to abide in it, rest in it, and very gently allow the well-being, the joy, the happiness, sometimes the rapture, the bliss that's there, to allow it to spread and suffuse throughout the body, throughout everything. So nothing that occurs is not touched by awareness, by this well-being that can be there. So so the Buddha provides these metaphors, these similes, and they're kind of pointing to, they're illustrating the kind of experience that can come as the mind gets settled, focused, quiet, still. When we start living in awareness rather than having to only sprinkle awareness, remind ourselves to bring more to it and more to it. And so it is a kind of points to a possibility, a potential we have, that, and these beautiful similes, maybe it's inspiring to think about this, to the possibility of abiding, resting in awareness, not contending with anything, not resisting with anything, but meeting everything with clear awareness and letting that build and develop over time. The sprinkles that we do slowly increase. The metaphor, the simile before was that of the soap powder coming together and holding together. Another simile the Buddha uses is also drops, is rain falling on the mountainside. And if the rain becomes large enough, continues long enough, and the water kind of sits on the surface of the soil, it starts to roll, and the drops meet each other and become little streamlets, and then the streamlets become streams, become creeks, becomes rivers. But as they go down the mountainside, they first go into a small lake, and then a bigger lake, and then the river goes into a bigger lake, and each lake gets bigger, gets quieter and stiller, because there's the lake is so big compared to the amount of water coming in, until finally the water ends up in the ocean, which is, in this simile, is the greatest, most peaceful place if you go a few feet under the surface of the water. So the sprinkles, the drops, drop by drop, we practice our mindfulness. That's our job, is to provide the drops. And if we keep doing it, the drops join and come together. And we start getting a sense and a feel for something vast and large and beautiful. So that was my attempt to make these similes come alive for you a little bit. So maybe you can see if something in your experience corresponds to these similes, and that maybe there's something about water that's evocative and interesting as a simile for awareness, for mindfulness, that kind of can change the quality, the characteristics of how you practice awareness, how you practice mindfulness. Practice as if you're bringing moist, flowing water to your experience, where there's no resistance to what is, but there's a flowing around and through and over and under. Or if it's not flowing, maybe it's still and just holds everything in the stillness of a quiet mind. So thank you, and there's more similes that the Buddha gives, so we'll continue tomorrow. Thank you.